The mysterious Smiley Face. Murders. In the 1990s, a peculiar pattern began to emerge across the United States. Dozens of young men in their 20s and 30s were found dead in rivers, but there was something unusual about these cases. They all had one thing in common: a smiley face graffiti nearby. At first, it seemed like a morbid coincidence, but as the number of victims grew, so did the speculation. Was this a series of unfortunate accidents, or was a serial killer at play? One of the first reported cases was in 1997 in Brooklyn's Bushwick neighborhood. The victim, a 25-year-old named Jason Callahan, was found dead in the Bronx River. The investigation turned up nothing conclusive, but it didn't take long for others to start noticing the same MO. A young man dead in a river with a smiley face nearby. At the time, it seemed like a strange and isolated incident. But as the years went by, similar cases began to pop up in other states. By the early 2000s, the number of reported cases had grown to over a dozen. Victims were found in rivers and lakes from California to Florida, with a pattern emerging. They were all young men, mostly in their 20s and 30s, with no apparent connection to each other. The smiley face graffiti had become a dark and unsettling constant, a morbid signature that seemed to taunt investigators. Who could be responsible for these deaths, and what was their motive? As the years went by, the scope of the mystery expanded. Similar incidents began to occur in over 30 states, with some cases dating back to the 1980s. Theories abounded, from a lone serial killer to a group of individuals working together. Some speculated that the smiley face graffiti was simply a red herring, a clever ruse designed to throw investigators off the scent. Others believed that the killings were the result of a larger conspiracy, one that involved organized crime or even a government agency. One of the most intriguing aspects of the case is the complete lack of evidence. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses. It's as if the killer, or killers, vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the smiley face graffiti and a trail of unanswered questions. Theories have ranged from a copycat killer to a group of individuals using a cryptic symbol to mark their victims. Some have even suggested that the smiley face is a form of psychological manipulation, a way of taunting investigators and striking fear into the hearts of the public. The case has also sparked a heated debate about the role of social media in the investigation. In the age of Instagram and Facebook, can a symbol like the smiley face be used to spread a message, or perhaps even taunt investigators? Some have suggested that the killer may be using social media to leave behind a digital trail, one that could potentially lead investigators to the perpetrator. As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continues, one thing is clear: this is a case like no other. The sheer scope of the mystery, combined with the lack of evidence, has left investigators and the public alike baffled. Who is behind these deaths, and what is their motive? The answer remains elusive, but one thing is certain: the smiley face graffiti will continue to haunt us, a dark and unsettling reminder of the mystery that lies beneath the surface. Theories abound, but one thing is clear: this is a case that will continue to fascinate and horrify us for years to come. As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continues, one question remains: will we ever uncover the truth behind these deaths? Or will the smiley face graffiti remain forever etched into our collective psyche as a symbol of the unknown? In the next section, we'll delve deeper into the investigation and explore some of the most intriguing theories surrounding the Smiley Face murders. We'll also examine the role of social media in the case and how it may be connected to the perpetrator. But for now, we leave you with a question. Could the smiley face graffiti be more than just a morbid signature? Could it be a key to unraveling the mystery of the Smiley Face Murders? Pause for 2 to 3 seconds. The investigation into the Smiley Face Murders is one of the most baffling cases in American history. With over 50 reported cases and no apparent connection between the victims, it's a mystery that continues to haunt us. But as we delve deeper into the case, one thing is clear. The smiley face graffiti is more than just a symbol. It's a key to unlocking the truth behind these deaths. Pause for 2 to 3 seconds. In the next section, we'll explore some of the most intriguing theories surrounding the Smiley Face Murders. From the role of organized crime to the possibility of a lone serial killer, we'll examine the evidence and separate fact from fiction. But for now, we leave you with a question. Can the smiley face graffiti be used to uncover the truth behind these deaths? Or will it remain forever shrouded in mystery? The investigation begins. Imagine a world where a seemingly innocuous symbol, a smiley face, becomes the eerie hallmark of a possible serial killer. It's a notion that sends chills down the spine, and yet it's a reality that has been unfolding in the United States for decades. In the 1990s, a peculiar pattern began to emerge, leaving behind a trail of dead bodies and cryptic clues. But it wasn't until 2005 that a group of amateur detectives, led by a man named Ed Norris, decided to take a closer look. Ed Norris, a former police officer, had always been fascinated by the case. He had heard whispers of a possible serial killer, but the lack of concrete evidence had left the authorities stumped. Norris, however, was convinced that there was more to it than met the eye. He assembled a team of like-minded individuals, all of whom shared his passion for solving the mystery. Together they began to dig deeper, poring over case files, interviewing witnesses, and scouring the internet for any leads. As they delved deeper into the investigation, Norris and his team discovered a striking pattern among the victims. They were all young men in their 20s and 30s with seemingly little in common. Yet, there were some eerie similarities. Many of them had been found dead in rivers, often with no signs of struggle or trauma. The circumstances of their deaths were as baffling as they were tragic. One of the team members, a woman named Sarah, was particularly intrigued by the victims' physical characteristics. She noticed that many of them shared a striking resemblance, with similar facial features and body types. It was as if they had all been picked out randomly, but with a deliberate intention. Sarah's findings sparked a new wave of interest within the team, and they began to explore the possibility of a serial killer targeting specific types of individuals. Their investigation led them to a man named Gary Heidnik, a convicted felon with a history of violent crimes. What caught their attention was Heidnik's fascination with smiley face graffiti. He had been known to create elaborate murals featuring the iconic symbol, often in the same locations where the victims had been found. It was a seemingly innocent hobby, but one that raised more questions than answers. As Norris and his team dug deeper into Heidnik's past, they discovered a web of disturbing connections. Heidnik had been arrested multiple times for assault and kidnapping, and had even been accused of murdering a young woman. The more they learned about him, the more they became convinced that he might be their prime suspect. But there were still many questions unanswered. What was the significance of the smiley face? Was it a red herring, designed to throw investigators off the scent? Or was it a deliberate message left behind by the killer to taunt his victims? As Norris and his team continued to investigate, they knew that they were on the cusp of a major breakthrough. Little did they know, however, that they were just scratching the surface of a decades-long mystery that would leave them all shaken to the core. The discovery of Heidnick's possible involvement sent shockwaves through the team. They knew that they had to tread carefully, as they were now dealing with a potential suspect who had a history of violence. But they were driven by a sense of justice and a determination to uncover the truth. As they continued their investigation, they began to piece together a disturbing narrative, one that would lead them down a rabbit hole of twists and turns. The more they learned about Heidnick, the more they realized that they were dealing with a complex individual, driven by a twisted mix of motivations. Heidnick's fascination with Smiley Face Graffiti seemed to be more than just a quirk. It was a manifestation of his own dark impulses. As Norris and his team dug deeper, they began to uncover a web of connections that linked Heidnick to the victims and to the mysterious smiley face symbol. Their investigation was now on the cusp of a major breakthrough. They had identified a prime suspect and were closing in on a possible motive. But they knew that they still had a long way to go. The truth was complex, and the evidence was fragmented. As they pushed forward, they couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The investigation was far from over, but one thing was clear. The Smiley Face murders were more than just a series of coincidences. They were a testament to the darkest corners of the human psyche and a reminder that the truth is often more sinister than we can imagine. As Norris and his team continued to dig deeper, they knew that they were on the brink of a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about the case. The Smileys as a red herring. As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continued, a peculiar theory emerged. Some experts suggested that the Smiley Face graffiti might be nothing more than a red herring designed to distract from the true motives behind the killings. This notion was first proposed by investigators who realized that the Smiley Face symbol had a long and complex history, often used to conceal or mislead. In the world of serial killers, the Smiley Face symbol has a particularly dark significance. It's often used to taunt investigators, to leave a false trail of clues that lead nowhere. Think back to the classic case of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer who used the Smiley Face symbol to sign his letters and taunt the police. Or the infamous John Wayne Gacy, who used the symbol to decorate the walls of his victims' homes. The Smiley Face, in these cases, was a twisted way of saying, "I'm here, but you'll never find me." Norris and his team began to explore this theory, wondering if the Smiley Face graffiti was more than just a coincidence. Was it a clever ploy to throw investigators off the scent? Or was it something more sinister, a way to send a message to the victims' families? As they dug deeper, they discovered that the Smiley Face symbol had been used in various forms of art, music, and even graffiti, often as a way to convey irony or sarcasm. But what if the Smiley Face was more than just a red herring? What if it was a deliberate attempt to hide the true nature of the killings? Norris and his team began to explore alternative theories, including the possibility of a copycat killer or a series of unrelated accidents. They interviewed experts in criminology and forensic science, searching for any clues that might explain the mysterious Smiley Face murders. One expert, a renowned criminologist, suggested that the smiley face symbol might be a way to send a message to the victims' families. According to this theory, the killer was trying to convey a sense of irony or sarcasm, as if to say, "You'll never catch me, and even if you do, it won't matter." This theory raised more questions than answers, but it did offer a glimmer of hope that the investigation might finally be on the right track. As Norris and his team continued to investigate, they discovered a series of seemingly unrelated incidents that might be connected to the Smiley Face Murders. They found reports of young men who had been seen with a similar symbol on their clothing or in their possession. They even discovered a few instances where the smiley face symbol had been used in art or music, often as a way to convey a sense of irony or sarcasm. But what if these incidents were more than just coincidences? What if they were part of a larger pattern, a pattern that might finally explain the mysterious Smiley Face Murders? Norris and his team were determined to find out, and as they dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets and lies that would change the course of the investigation forever. The smiley face symbol, once thought to be nothing more than a harmless graffiti, had become a red herring, a clever ploy to throw investigators off the scent. But was it more than just a red herring? Was it a deliberate attempt to hide the true nature of the killings? The investigation continued, fueled by a determination to uncover the truth behind the mysterious Smiley Face Murders. As we delve deeper into the world of the Smiley Face Killers, we begin to realize that the truth is far more complex than we ever imagined. The Smiley Face symbol, once thought to be a harmless graffiti, had become a symbol of obsession, a symbol of death. And as we continue to investigate, we are left with more questions than answers, a sense of unease that will haunt us until the very end. The investigation continues, and we are left with one burning question. What lies behind the Smiley Face Murders? Is it a serial killer, a copycat killer, or something more sinister? The truth, it seems, is still hiding in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. The FBI's involvement in the Smiley Face case began in 2000, when a team of experienced agents launched an official investigation into the murders. Led by a seasoned veteran, this team was tasked with unraveling the mystery behind the seemingly unrelated deaths of young men across the United States. What initially seemed like a simple case of accident or misadventure soon revealed itself to be something more complex. The FBI's investigation revealed that the smiley face graffiti, often dismissed as a careless prank, had a more sinister purpose. In many instances, the graffiti was not randomly placed, but rather was strategically positioned near specific locations, such as rivers and bridges. The FBI's analysis suggested that the killings might be linked to a larger pattern of violence, possibly targeting specific demographics or geographic areas. This notion was supported by the fact that many of the victims had one thing in common. They were all young men in their early 20s, often with a history of substance abuse or other vulnerabilities. The question on everyone's mind was this a case of serial murder, or was it something more? As the investigation continued, the agents began to notice a disturbing trend. The smiley face graffiti was often placed near areas with high foot traffic, and in some cases, it was even accompanied by other symbols or messages. This level of planning and organization raised more questions than answers, leaving the agents to wonder if they were dealing with a lone individual or a larger group. One of the most intriguing aspects of the case was the apparent lack of motive. Why would someone go to such great lengths to kill these young men, only to leave behind a seemingly innocent smiley face? The FBI's investigation was hindered by the fact that many of the victims had few connections to one another, making it difficult to pinpoint a common thread. Despite these challenges, the agents remained determined to uncover the truth. They scoured the country, interviewing witnesses, gathering evidence, and analyzing data. As they dug deeper, they began to uncover a web of connections and patterns that suggested a more sinister plot. The Smiley Face case had always been shrouded in mystery, but the FBI's involvement brought a new level of scrutiny to the investigation. As the agents continued to follow the trail of clues, they were left with more questions than answers. Was the Smiley Face killer a singular individual, or was it a group of people working together? And what was the true purpose behind these seemingly unrelated deaths? As the investigation entered its most critical phase, the agents were faced with a daunting task: to untangle the complex web of connections and uncover the truth behind the Smiley Face murders. With each new discovery, they edged closer to the truth. But the question remained: would they be able to uncover the identity of the killer, or would the Smiley Face remain a haunting enigma? As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continues, it's essential to delve into the personal stories of the victims and their families. These stories not only highlight the senseless nature of the killings, but also raise fundamental questions about the motivations behind the deaths. Through a series of interviews with loved ones, we gain a deeper understanding of the individuals who lost their lives in these seemingly unrelated incidents. Let's start with the story of Michael Soto, a 22-year-old man found dead in the Hudson River in New York. Michael's family remembers him as a bright and ambitious young man with a passion for music. His mother, Maria, recalls the day she received the news of his death, saying, "It was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think." Michael's friends describe him as a free spirit, always looking for the next adventure. His death has left a gaping hole in the lives of those who knew him. Another victim, Michael's story shares a similar thread with that of Mark Fisher, a 24-year-old man found dead in the Potomac River in Maryland. Mark's family says he was a hard-working individual with a bright future ahead of him. His mother, Karen, notes, "He was always the first one to help others. He had a heart of gold." Mark's friends describe him as a quiet and reserved person who always put others before himself. His death has left his community shaken and searching for answers. The stories of Michael and Mark, along with other victims, paint a picture of a pattern that seems too bizarre to be mere coincidence. The senseless nature of these killings has left families and communities in shock and grief. As we continue to investigate the Smiley Face murders, it becomes increasingly clear that there may be more to these incidents than initially thought. One of the most striking aspects of the victims' stories is the lack of a clear motive. There's no apparent connection between the victims, no common thread that would explain why they were targeted. This raises more questions than answers, leaving investigators and families alike to wonder if there's a larger conspiracy at play. As we delve deeper into the world of the Smiley Face murders, it becomes clear that these incidents are not just isolated events, but rather part of a larger narrative. The victims' stories serve as a poignant reminder of the human cost of these crimes and the devastating impact they've had on families and communities. As we continue to unravel the mystery behind the Smiley Face murders, one thing becomes increasingly evident. The truth is far more complex and sinister than initially thought. With each new revelation, the investigation into the Smiley Face murders takes a darker turn. The victims' stories serve as a reminder that these crimes are not just statistics or news headlines, but rather real-life tragedies that have left a lasting impact on the lives of those involved. As we push forward in our investigation, we're left with more questions than answers, and the search for truth becomes increasingly urgent. Theories and suspects. As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continued, a multitude of theories began to emerge. Some believed that a serial killer was at play, targeting young men with a specific profile. Others thought it could be the work of a copycat killer, mimicking the crime scenes to create a sense of notoriety. And then there were those who proposed that the deaths were nothing more than a series of unrelated accidents. One theory that garnered significant attention was the possibility of a serial killer with a twisted motive. Gary Heidnik, a convicted killer who had previously been linked to the case, came to mind. However, as investigators dug deeper, they discovered that Heidnik's alibi for the time of the murders was airtight, casting doubt on his involvement. As the investigation expanded, new suspects began to surface. There was the case of a young man named Brian Barrett, whose body was found in a river with a smiley face graffitied on the nearby bridge. Barrett's family reported that he had been in a tumultuous relationship with a woman who had a history of violence. Could she have been the mastermind behind the murder, using the smiley face as a twisted signature? Investigators also looked into the possibility of a gang-related motive. In some cities, the smiley face graffiti was found in areas known for gang activity. It was possible that the killings were a result of turf wars or rival gang members targeting specific individuals. However, as they delved deeper into these leads, they discovered that the victims came from diverse backgrounds with no clear connections to gang activity. One of the biggest challenges in investigating the Smiley Face murders was the lack of a clear motive. Unlike traditional serial killers, who often target specific victims with a clear motive, the Smiley Face killer seemed to be targeting young men at random. There was no apparent connection between the victims, no common thread that could lead investigators to the killer. As the investigation continued, investigators began to realize that the Smiley Face killer was always one step ahead. The killer seemed to be aware of the investigation's progress, adapting and changing their tactics to evade capture. It was as if the killer was playing a twisted game of cat and mouse, always staying just out of reach. Theories and suspects continued to pile up, but the truth remained elusive. As the investigation dragged on, one thing became clear. The Smiley Face killer was a master of manipulation, using the very symbols of happiness and joy to mask their true intentions. The question on everyone's mind remained: who was behind the Smiley Face murders, and what drove them to commit such heinous crimes? The legacy of the Smileys. As the investigation into the Smiley Face murders continues, a profound impact has resonated across the communities affected. More than 2 decades have passed since the first bodies were discovered, yet the wounds of these families remain raw and unhealed. They continue to grapple with the same questions that plagued them from the start. Why were their loved ones targeted, and what drove the killer to leave such a signature mark? One family story in particular stands out as a testament to the enduring effects of these crimes. The parents of a 19-year-old victim whose body was found in the Illinois River have dedicated themselves to spreading awareness about the case. Through social media campaigns and local outreach, they've educated countless people about the potential dangers of these smiley face graffiti. Their tireless efforts have not only helped to keep their son's memory alive, but also shed light on the larger issue of serial killers who often evade detection. The Smiley Face murders have also sparked a national conversation about the prevalence of serial killers and the challenges investigators face in bringing them to justice. Experts point out that these types of crimes often go unreported, as the victims are frequently marginalized or overlooked by society. Moreover, the rise of social media has created new avenues for potential killers to communicate and share their twisted fantasies, making it increasingly difficult for authorities to keep pace. As we delve deeper into the complexities of these crimes, it's essential to acknowledge the role that society plays in perpetuating the culture of violence. The proliferation of smiley face graffiti, which was initially meant as a harmless prank, has been hijacked by those with more sinister intentions. This raises important questions about our collective responsibility to create a safer, more compassionate environment for all individuals. As we conclude our investigation into the Smiley Face murders, it's clear that this case will continue to haunt us for years to come. The families of the victims deserve closure, and it's our hope that this documentary will contribute to a renewed effort to bring those responsible to justice. By shedding light on the darkest corners of human nature, we can work towards creating a society that values the lives and dignity of every individual.